Just saw a very entertaining film, Sundown, starring Tim Roth, and I enjoyed it. Almost nothing happens in the movie. It's like one of those movies where almost nothing happens. It's normal stuff. It's a story about a man who's probably in his late 40s, early 50s. We don't know this until the very end of the film, but he's got something seriously wrong with his body that I won't give that away. It's a spoiler. And he's on vacation with I think it's his wife at first, but turns out it's his sister and her two nearly adult children, probably 18, 19, maybe 20, something in that age group. And they're all on vacation in Acapulco. It's beautiful. It's filmed in Mexico by a Mexican crew pretty much. It's just exquisite cinematography. I really enjoyed the visuals. And while they're on vacation, we learn more and more about this man, and there's suddenly a situation where her sister or some family member, someone close to her, dies, and so they have to suddenly leave Mexico and go back to London. They're Brits. And he fakes it at the airport that he doesn't have his passport, he can't go, and he's going to go back and join them later and all that kind of thing. Well, he has no intention. He didn't lose his passport. It's a big lie. He just doesn't want to go. We find out that he and his sister are not really close. They're not really on the same page. They have a big business of some kinds, never explained, but they have a huge business, money-wise anyway, and they have a lot of holdings and farms and property and real estate. So they're upper class, you might say, millionaires, multi-millionaires, most likely, mega millionaires maybe. And basically, she comes back, the sister comes back to find out, what the hell, where are you? Why aren't you back over here in England? And he's just nonchalant, this guy. Tim Roth just plays a really cool character who does almost nothing, says very little dialogue in the movie. There is quite a bit of Spanish. It's all subtitled in English, so you do understand what they're saying in Spanish. And while he's over there, he meets this beautiful senorita, and she's buying beer at the beer place with her. And he falls for her. They start having an affair, and they have some hot sex. There's nothing really too graphic. Of course, there's no nudity in films today much, not like in the 70s where there was nudity in so many films. They just don't do that anymore. But it's rare. But anyway, that situation develops. Well, then, as his sister comes, she's there, and she's really upset about him not coming. She realizes it was all a ruse, that he didn't lose his passport. He was just faking it. So turns out he wants to turn over the holdings of the company, his shares of the company, to her. Sell out everything, give her total control. But he gets this very generous stipend or allowance or pension, you might call it, a certain amount of money every month. So who knows if it's 10, 20,000, but he's getting a significant amount. And that's kind of how it plays out. He signs off. So she leaves to go back to London, and then something really bad happens. And that's where the plot thickens. And I don't want to say too much more, but there's a little bit of almost like Midnight Express going on, if you know what I mean. There's a shower scene, the soap. I start thinking, uh-oh, this is going to get ugly here. But there's some strange imagery in the film, symbolically. Some pigs. I don't want to say much more, but pigs on the run. There's some pigs in the movie that play a role. And the film's kind of a little bit dark because we see a couple of murders in the film, but they're very brief. The violence is not gratuitous violence. It's very integral to the story and the plot, so I did not mind the few violent scenes. There's a fair amount of profanity, a little bit of cigarette smoking. Not much else, of anything to caution you about. But it's a really well-made film, very beautiful. Like I say, imagery. We see an image of sundown at one point. He's just like in another world. And we find out later in the film, as the plot thickens, what the health condition he has is, what it implies now, what the situation is going to turn into. And I thought it was what I would call a minimalist film. And a throwback to some of the older films, European films of years past, where they have a lot of depth to it, but not much going on. So it's up to the viewer to really pay attention to the character. And a very realistic movie, ultra realistic. There's so much realism in this film, it blew my mind. At a couple of times, I wondered if there were some things thrown in there that were definitely contrived a little bit to make it look more real. Like at one scene, They're getting ready to talk, and there's a dog barks right before a line of dialogue, and it's timed so perfectly that in real life, that's the kind of thing that happens all the time. You hear a dog bark, and then you hear people talk, and you go on with your conversation. You don't really pay attention to the dog, but it's there, and you heard it. And so in the film, there's little things like that, or a scene at the beach where right in front of the guy, a big woman walks across the screen in front of him. And you wouldn't normally do that in a Hollywood picture. It would say like, well, get her out of the way. We want to see the star. But no, that's realism. That's real life. People walk in front of your cameras all the time. And it was shot on location, and they probably paid the person to do it. I doubt that was random, but it could have been maybe one of those welcome mistakes that happen, happy mistakes, and they leave it in the movie because it worked so well. But there's a lot of realism in this film, and I thought the character was true to life. Tim Roth, even though it's one of the most understated roles he's ever played, he can play very intense roles, very dramatic roles. Tim Roth's a really terrific actor. Reservoir Dogs is one of my favorite films of his, but he's been in so many good ones. This is a winner. If you like a subtle, low-keyed movie, again, don't go in expecting Hollywood explosions. And, well, there were a couple of little explosions, but again, I don't want to spoil it for you. So, yeah, it's not an action film. It's not an exciting film. It's an intriguing melodrama of modern day and the plight of a modern day man who seemingly has everything he wants in life, and he's watching it slowly slip away, as it will for everybody. Happy trails, friends. Check out Sundown. I think you might like it.